So Louis Vuitton has just launched their third fragrance of 2020. We first saw California Dream, then we saw Nuit de Feu, and now we have Meteore. Meteore is from the men's collection of fragrances from Louis Vuitton, and this is the 6th men's fragrance. And I've got all the scoop for you on Meteore. So if you're curious to learn about this particular fragrance from Louis Vuitton, as I hear from you guys if I'm going to review it, then please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian with Smelling Great Fragrance Reviews. That's right, today I'm talking about Meteore from the house of Louis Vuitton. As I said, this is the third release of this year. And it comes with blue juice. So what does that mean to you? Blue juice, blue theme? Yes, it is a very blue fragrance. And I'm going to tell you all about it. But before we do that, if this is your first time tuning into my channel and you still haven't subscribed to my channel, please click the subscribe button below and also click the bell so you'll be notified for future videos and giveaways. So Louis Vuitton first launched 7 fragrances targeted to ladies in 2016. Fast forward to May of 2018, they launched 5 men's fragrances along with 1 Oriental or Middle East release, Ombre Nomade. Now, 2.5 years later, almost, they're launching their 6th men's fragrance, and I have to be honest, it's nothing special at all. The fragrance that they launched first, California Dream, this year, I felt like started great but went really sharp and metallic, which was kind of a bummer for me. Then Nuit de Feu launched earlier, several months earlier, which I felt like it was a great incense fragrance. And now we have this very, very generic release, sadly. It is in line with all the blue fragrances out there. It's very, very blue. And I'll tell you what that style is, but this is a 2020 launch. It's considered a citrus aromatic fragrance. A 200 ml bottle is $390. This is a 200 ml. 100 ml bottle is $265. And the perfumer for this fragrance, like all fragrances from Louis Vuitton, is Jacques Cavallier. And for notes here, taken directly from the Louis Vuitton website, you have Mandarin orange from Italy, you have Neroli from Tunisia, you have Bergamot from Italy. In the heart notes, you have black pepper, pink pepper from Reunion, and Sichuan pepper. And finally, in the base notes, you have Vetiver from Java. So, what's this one all about? Well, personally, I feel like it's definitely in line with all those blue fragrances, but it's not similar to any of them. It might hint at some of them. You know, it does hint at a little bit of Bleu de Chanel. It does hint at a little bit of, what do you call it, Sauvage, maybe a little bit of Percival, maybe a little bit of Mr. Burberry, and so on. All those fragrances do come to mind, but this is definitely a luxury edition of that fragrance. It's nothing groundbreaking for me, and it does remind me of all those fragrances, but it actually reminds me of the consistency and the texture of something more like Bleu de Chanel and Mr. Burberry, rather than the sharpness of something like Dior Sauvage or Percival from Parfums de Marly, because I feel like this goes on very pleasant. In fact, it starts out very pleasant, and Mandarin orange and Neroli and Bergamot starts the fragrance off. And you know, I love my citruses, and I feel like this is a pleasant start for the fragrance, but it goes downhill from there. It really does go downhill from there, because it starts reminding me of very, very common and generic fragrances that I'm so past that why do I even bother with a fragrance like this, if that makes sense to you guys. When you get to the heart with this one, it's all about spices of the peppers. So not only do you have a pretty prominent pink pepper note here, it's not as sharp as the black pepper, but the sharpness of the black pepper does come in. And then you have that Sichuan pepper. And the Sichuan pepper has a spicy, lemony edge to it. There are some lemony touches with this one. But you know, it does settle to a very, very generic vetiver, very generic. And there are some light ambery touches. Very, very synthetic smelling dry down. So the more it dries down, the boring the fragrance gets, because it starts off pretty fresh. I love this start. It's a great start. I love my, you know, Neroli, and I love my Bergamot and Mandarin orange. It's a very, very fresh, pleasant start, but it doesn't stay there. It just becomes very, very generic and boring, and that's the disappointing factor about this fragrance. One thing that I do like about the fragrance is that when you first spray it, it's ultra soapy and clean. It's very, very fresh, and I think the combination of the Mandarin orange and the Neroli and the Bergamot adds a very, very soapy layer to it. And it's also a very smooth start, as I was saying, not a sharp start. And I like that. I like smoother and softer fragrances, but still big, intense fragrances over sharp, because sharp fragrances I can totally get annoying to me, to my nose at least, especially with something like California Dream, where that fragrance starts off smelling fantastic, then it kind of makes a 180 and goes ultra sharp with some sharp aromatic notes, and the fragrance just disappoints me after a while. Here, it's almost like that, but it doesn't disappoint me where it does a curveball on me. It just gets boring and boring as it's drying down and becoming more generic and generic and generic. So I feel like in the men's collection there are some gems. Orage is great, Nouveau Monde is great, Sur la Route is great, even L'Immensité is great, and Au Hasard is great. But this one, to me, I feel like it was an afterthought. It's like, what are we going to do? I'm talking or speaking as if I'm the marketing department for LVMH. Like, what are we going to do? We have to come up with something. We got to make some more money. Let's make the most generic smelling fragrance and add it to our roster of fragrances. And they're probably going to sell a lot, because I feel like these kind of fragrances are very pleasant, and what's really going to do it is probably what they smell at the top, because when you smell it at the top, it smells fantastic. It smells like a great fresh citrus floral fragrance, but as the fragrance is drying down and drying down and drying down, it becomes boring and boring, boring. In fact, the dry down on here on me is so boring, it's like I want to put something else on it, because it doesn't even smell anything pleasant. There's the vetiver touches, of course, and there's some almost like amber wood or very, very generic amber wood combo synthetics thrown in to give me something very, very generic and boring, obviously. So I come to expect something a little more exciting in a Louis Vuitton fragrance, and I love a lot of the Louis Vuitton fragrances. Just this one is just very, very disappointing. The fact that they're giving us something very, very boring smelling. And I think they'll still make a ton of money, because as I was saying, it smells really, really nice at the top, even when you have those 3 notes at the top and it goes into that clean soapy direction. Because what people are going to judge a fragrance by, when you're, especially like if you're a consumer of Louis Vuitton products and you're buying some very, very expensive luxury items, and this fragrance is like actually presented to you by a sales associate, and then you're going to smell it. Smells great. And you're going to buy it, take it, and then you're going to wear it, and it's like, oh, this doesn't smell great. So I highly recommend that you guys, if you're going to test this one out, test it out and get a sample and smell it. Because if you've been watching my videos and you have an idea of some niche quality fragrances and some fragrances that are not on the generic side, this will become very, very boring to you, especially when you start wearing it and you experience the dry down and how it settles on your skin. Because as I said, it starts out smelling fantastic, very, very fresh and refreshing with those citrus and citrus floral notes, but it dries down to something very, very generic and boring that I don't even want to put on my body, because it goes in that direction. So sadly, this year we've had 2 doozies from Louis Vuitton and 1 great release with Nuit de Faux, which is bad, because now I feel like they've made so many fragrances. In fact, what's going on here? How many fragrances do they have now? So we've got 7 original women's fragrances, 5 in the men's, which makes 12, 1 Oriental Middle East, which makes 13, and they've launched 2 additional women's fragrances, which makes 15, and then they launched the 3 fresh ones, which was 18. Then they've launched 2 more women's, that's 20, 2 more Orientals, which is 22, 1 more California themed or fresh themed, which makes it 23. Am I losing count? And then finally this, it's 24. So they've got about 24, 25 fragrances in 4 years. That's a lot of fragrances. I hope they're not going to do more fragrances like this, and they're going to get a little more unique, because I'm a fan of the collection. I love their fragrances. In fact, I feel like their designers, definitely obviously designers, but some of their fragrances do go into the niche territory, even though we have designers, and they're very wearable fragrances. They're not anything weird, but this one actually goes really, really backwards for me. It goes into like very, very unthought of, which is sad, because I think basically what this fragrance has become is a money-making scheme, a money grab, pretty much. Because They're just trying to appeal to every single particular clientele, and I think they'll sell a lot of it. I definitely do think that. But I highly recommend you guys test it out with a sample prior to actually buying a full bottle, because as I said, if you were following this channel for a while, you're going to find that the dry down is going to be very, very boring. In fact, you probably would not even want to wear it. But if you're used to fragrances like those fragrances I mentioned, like Bleu de Chanel and those, you might like this one. But then again, if you already have those fragrances, would you want another one called Meteor? Anyway, let me know your thoughts on this fragrance, and let me know your thoughts on the whole entire collection from Louis Vuitton. Do you like any of their fragrances? Do you hate them? Do you think they're overpriced? Do you think they're overly luxury? Let me know, put some comments down so I can find out. Other than that, if you have any questions or comments, please list below. Otherwise, please like this video, please share it, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.